The announcement of Jonathan Wheatley's departure from Red Bull came as a pretty big shock. The team seems to be hemorrhaging men who have been integral to the team's success over the past couple of decades, and the loss of the sporting director who has been around for every victory that the team has ever achieved is a pretty earth-shaking change at the Milton Keynes team. Don't take our word for it either, as some of the team's higher-ups are already rueing the loss, with some just flat-out shocked and others reeling to come up with convenient positives and silver linings, and we can't really help but doubt the reality of some of these positives. And if you ask Christian Horner, he is pretty happy to see the back of him, as he gave a savage response to his longtime colleague's departure. But be careful what you wish for, Christian, as all of these high-profile departures are going to add up eventually. Want to know why Christian Horner may be the last man standing at Red Bull? It's not all over yet, but let's just say people weren't exactly jumping off the Titanic before it was sinking. And stick around, because the show of faith in Sergio may prove to be far shorter lived than they're leading us to believe. And Christian's ruthless response to the sporting director's departure may give us an insight to a brutal plan. Earlier this week, Helmut Marko said the words, "In 2025 the cards will be reshuffled," and at the time we thought he merely meant the drivers lineup. Of all the headaches that Red Bull currently have, the driver backlog and current issues with the underperforming Sergio Perez were the most obvious and are the problems we expected to be addressed. However, it seems that the problems go far beyond that, with more and more behind the scenes issues cropping up. Clearly the start of the year was a one-off issue, where someone as high profile as the team principal comes under such intense scrutiny. However, the back-of-house issues seem to only be getting worse for Red Bull. The most recent departure, sporting director and 18-year veteran Jonathan Wheatley, is a sudden one at a very critical time. A sporting director is integral to the trackside operations of a team, so having consistency and a long-existing relationship between the team and its sporting director can be make or break. Pre-season testing for the new regulations car is a mere 17 months away, and the loss of a sporting director at a time where so much needs guiding is pretty crippling. Not only are the new regulations a brand new challenge in regards to the car, but the new engine department for Red Bull powertrains will present a further challenge to a new sporting director who will still only just be getting their feet under the table. Yes, they will have a year's experience by then, but if this season is anything to go by, it's not exactly going to be a smooth introduction to the sport. And worse yet, the new sporting director isn't guaranteed to be as good of a steward for the team. This is what the outgoing sporting director had to say, with him giving a pretty clear reason for leaving. "I am extremely proud to have been part of the Red Bull racing journey over the last 18 years and will leave with many fond memories. However, the opportunity to play an active part in Audi's entry into Formula 1 as head of a factory team is a uniquely exciting prospect, and I am looking forward to the challenge." So, he was tempted away by Audi, right? That's the be-all and end-all of it, surely. Well, when you bear in mind the amount of other high-profile veterans leaving Red Bull this year, it becomes a little less convincing that this was the only reason for him leaving. Wheatley joins Adrian Newey, Rob Marshall and Dan Fallows on a list that is getting longer and longer as the year goes on, and it has to be said that this year is the least secure Red Bull has been for a long time, for more than just the obvious reasons. If you look at the performance as the year goes on, cracks are really starting to show, and the individual brilliance of Max Verstappen is no longer enough, and when the team needs to step up to help him, they have failed to do so. Add to that the behind-the-scenes instability and the PR nightmare created by the Horner fiasco at the start of the year, then the team becomes a powder keg. But there is one final factor that causes this whole mess to become more unstable and more unpredictable. We've said for a while now that the death of Dietrich Mateschitz has set Red Bull on a path where it is set to self-destruct under the weight of unbalanced and unchecked egos. The three-headed beast that once topped Red Bull in Horner, Marko and Mateschitz came undone by the passing of the Red Bull co-founder, and ever since then, two words have been repeated over and over again when talking about the team that isn't uttered anywhere else: power struggle. And it seems that Christian Horner is winning this with overwhelming force of ego, as every behind-the-scenes decision is being tipped more and more in his favor. The drivers he wants in place are secure in their positions for now despite underperformance, the wishes of Helmut Marko are being ignored, and it really does appear that the Chris-tatorship at the top of Red Bull is in full swing. The environment created by the power struggle is an incredibly toxic one, and if you needed any convincing of that, Christian Horner's reaction to Jonathan Wheatley's departure is all you need to hear. "I know Jonathan wants to go. Why not? He is an expensive man, whose salary allows me to employ a few engineers." This is an entirely different response given to Blick than his public announcement, which had all the talk of history with the frills and thanks expected of a PR-constructed response. The bitter and passive-aggressive response is far more befitting of how Horner can be, with a thinly veiled vitriol showing a far more peeved reaction for Wheatley's departure. The main thing to take away from the official response put out by the team was the fact that the team believes that they have enough depth internally to replace the outgoing sporting director. However, it's one thing promoting someone to the role, it's another thing entirely them actually working out and doing as good of a job as Wheatley has done. The question is, just how much more change is Red Bull going to go through, and will the new arrivals and promotions stick around through the instability at the team which seems to be building year on year? Horner seems to have taken the team in an iron grip this season, perhaps prompted out of desperation to not lose it all, after the very existential threats he endured at the beginning of the year. However, the very hold in which he seems to have the team could equally control it, as squeeze the life out of it if he continues on this path. While yes, Audi presents a new role and opportunity that wouldn't be granted to Wheatley for as long as he stayed at Red Bull, we highly doubt that he would be as tempted to move to a project so publicly rejected by Sainz, criticized by other team owners, and doubted by even the man that they eventually hired as CTO. If Wheatley is moving there, it isn't exactly going to be for stability, so just imagine how dismal the situation he is leaving must be. Someone desperate to stay at Red Bull, Sergio Perez, may well end up being burnt if things continue the way they are, and the language surrounding his continued existence at the team is pretty worrying for the Mexican driver. The announcement that Perez would be continuing at Red Bull after the summer break had some pretty non-committal language in regards to just how long Perez will be staying at the team, sparking conspiracy theories about the external influence from Liberty, as well as speculation as to just how far Red Bull's support of their driver will go. Christian Horner's statement said the following: Checo remains a Red Bull Racing driver despite recent speculation, and we look forward to seeing him perform at tracks he has previously excelled at after the summer break. And this can be read in two ways. Either Red Bull are lowering the bar to Checo performing well at circuits he has performed well at in the past, or their continued unprecedented support of the underperforming driver has a time limit. It's not, we're keeping him until the end of the season and beyond, and it really does seem that the summer break test between Ricciardo and Lawson may still play a role like we think it will, as Perez is by no means guaranteed to even make it to the end of the season. Red Bull have done nothing to indicate a firm show of support, rather extended Checo's lifeline a bit further, and that is the exact thing that caused a wildfire of speculation and conspiracy theories surrounding Liberty Media. There are 5 races before the Mexican Grand Prix, and it's been speculated that Liberty Media would see the dropping of Sergio Perez as having a negative impact to the ticket sales and the fan turnout to his home race. Not only that, but the United States Grand Prix that precedes it often sees a vast Checo fan turnout, which may have inspired a Liberty intervention, as it became apparent that Checo had failed to match the expectations made of him before the Belgian Grand Prix. Obviously, this is mere speculation and conspiracy, and we are by no means saying that these claims are legitimate. However, it must be said that the fact that these claims even exist are a testament to just how ridiculous of a situation exists behind the scenes at Red Bull Racing.